two topics that we are looking at and two dates, right? So I
Yes.
was just figuring it out if we have a poll in here. So
Hmm.
as I don't see an option, do I put it in the chat box? The topics numbering as one and two dates, right? So I
Yes.
was just figuring it out if we have a poll in here.
Hmm.
So as I don't see an option, do I put it in the chat box? The topics numbering as one and two.
Hang on, there should be an option.
Right.
No?
So I was just figuring it out if we have a poll. As I don't see an option, do I put it in the chat box? The topics numbering as one and two.
Hang on, there should be an option.
Right.
No?
So I was just figuring it out if we have a poll. Is
As
my
I
voice
do
do I put it in the chat
There's
box?
an echo.
Yeah,
There's an
ma'am,
echo. One
Yes,
second.
ma'am.
could be
Yeah.
because of YouTube. I don't know.
Yeah, because I've gone live on YouTube. I don't know how to
Is my
mute
voice
that.
do I put it in the
I
chat?
think you might have to.
Yeah.
There's an
Ma'am.
echo. One
Yes,
second.
ma'am.
Arwa, ma'am, can you try talking now? We'll see if this happens again.
Is it okay?
Yeah, I think because live streaming is also playing on the background is why it's.
Okay.
Hi, Riddhi. So I shall start then. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I would give a brief introduction about who Riddhi is. Today, we are delighted to welcome her as our speaker. Riddhi holds a master's degree in clinical psychology from Christ University, Bangalore, and she has also qualified for the National Eligibility Test for PhD. She has a diverse clinical experience, including providing therapy under supervision, working with neurodivergent children, and facilitating group therapy sessions for individuals with substance dependency. Her research interests have focused on contemporary mental health challenges, including the relationship between existential anxiety and social media usage and the work life balance of working mothers, both of which she has presented at reputed psychology conferences. Beyond her clinical work, Ms. Hare has actively contributed to psychoeducation, mentoring, and volunteering initiatives aimed at supporting children and families. With certifications from prestigious institutes, she brings a rich blend of academic insight as well as practical experience to her work. We look forward to hearing her valuable insights today on parenting styles and their impact on the child. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Riddhi Ray. Riddhi, over to you.
Thank you so much for the kind introduction, Christy. I hope that everybody is able to hear me clearly and are able to see the slide. Just give me a heads up if that's okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. So good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for being here today. I'm really excited to have you all to discuss about parenting styles and how does it leave a lasting impact on us. Parenting is such a powerful role that any of us can take on, and one of the most challenging and constantly evolving role that with the child growing up, you're also growing up in ways. And it's often kind of a job where you don't really have a manual on what's going to happen. So you're constantly learning on the go. And the reason I chose this topic to present was because a lot of the times parents during assessments, when they come with a child who has a lot of behavioral issues or emotional issues, they always mention that, maybe I should have been a bit more strict or maybe I could have been involved. And there never seems to be like a correct way to parent. And even they are looking for answers. And I hope that I'm able to provide some of the answers and some insight through this webinar. And I won't be just focusing on understanding the psychological impact of the parenting styles, but also and understanding some science behind it, and also how can we connect with our children better. So without much wait, we'll just begin. So let us understanding first, what exactly is parenting? Is my slide changing? All right, yeah. Okay. So as you see on the screen, parenting is a process of raising, supporting, and promoting the psychological and physical development of the child, which encompasses their empathy, empathetic growth, cognitive growth, social growth from infancy to adulthood. So no matter how old you get, you'll always need your parents, is what I've understood. And effective parenting isn't about having all the answers, I think. And I really believe that with the child growing, you also have to be curious. You also have to be responsive and committed in understanding what do they need at the moment. And the focus is being on real and not perfect. And also expecting the same out of the child and not having certain expectations which will, just create a distance between what they can do. So again, the key is to be real parents, but not perfect ones. Okay. So let us understand why is it that parenting styles matter, right? The way we parent our children, the tone we use, the boundaries we set, and how we react in moments of conflict often ends up shaping much more than their behavior. So it deeply influences the child's emotional, social, academic, and physical well-being. How so? Is when children are very, observant. So the way you react, the way you express your emotion, the way you understand your emotion, it's definitely something that the child will pick up. For example, if you're a parent who is very warm, very supportive, and very structured in the way that you go about your day, it's much more likely that, the children will feel secure. They will have a healthy sense of expression and they'll believe that, I have the space to go to my mom or dad and talk about my feelings or talk about my day. On the other hand, if you're very controlling, extremely controlling, that you have to do things this way or that way, and I want you to get certain things done particularly, your child will grow up to be quite anxious. They won't feel like expressing to you. They won't feel like it's a safe space for them to express anything. So it's quite important that the way we interact with our children kind of promotes that healthy emotional development, right? Secondly, when we raise our children with respective communication, with consistent boundaries, they are much more likely to be empathetic, cooperative, and also assertive in social settings. So a parenting style which encourages empathy, which encourages mutual respect, that will really help, and the way for the child to understand that, okay, in the outside world, I also have to interact with others the same way. So the words we use with our children are often something that they hold in them lifelong. And it's quite important that we give them the respect that they need, so that they have that understanding that even when I go outside, nobody can disrespect me. And they have that safe sense of self. So it's quite important that the way we interact is respectful, it's very consistent, right? Thirdly, when we look at the academic outcomes of the type of parenting, we must have all, heard of number of cases where children who are especially okay, children who are especially preparing for competitive exams, they are going through so much pressures, and there's so many children who just give up, and they sadly, unfortunately, end their life. So there will be pressures in your life, right? There will be systemic pressures. There will be a lot going on. But the only thing that you can provide as a parent is just a sense of companionship, a sense of support. And research has also shown that, support and having a structured sense of parenting often creates an environment where children are thriving in academics. And when you are appreciating the efforts that the children put, instead of just focusing on the marks or the performance, you're more likely to create an intrinsic sense of motivation. And that's what's going to take your children far, right? And they're more likely to be focused, they are more likely to be resilient in times of crisis when they are not able to maybe keep up with the academic pressures. The way we provide them support, the way we are just there for them, that's all that matters, right? So lastly, and most importantly, is perhaps how your parenting styles affect your mental health. So if you must have seen children who are very expressive outside, they would also be like under a style where the parents are expressive, they are very vocal about their feelings. So parenting style has consistently shown a lifelong impact on the way the child's mental health processes. Children who are raised in like a validating environment, in secure environment, are more resilient, and they are able to cope up with the pressures of the environment quite well, and they are less likely to get mental health concerns, which we see are very much on the rise these days. On the flip side, if the parenting style is inconsistent, where it's emotionally distant, when someday you're acting cold to your child, someday you're acting warm to your child, it's very much likely that the child will always be on their toes. They won't know what to expect. And this is what leads to a lot of risk in mental health issues in adolescents. So to understand basically the type of parenting, I have a quick, like case like we all to reflect and sit and share with me about. So as you see on the screen, I have a big question for you. What would you do if you were this child's parent? So Ria is 9-year-old and she studies trouble finishing her homework. Her teachers have noted incomplete assignments and untidy work. And at home, Ria often gets distracted by TV or wants to use her tablet to play games or watch YouTube. This sounds quite familiar to a lot of parents, I'm guessing. And when asked to do her homework, she often says, I'll do it later. This is so boring. Or why do I have to do this now? So recently, there was an event where this led to a big conflict. Parents reminded Ria to do her homework, but she refused. She lay down on the sofa watching cartoons and started whining loud. So I want us to all just sit and just share with me if you can, either through comments or like by unmuting yourself. If you were Ria's parent, what would you do? how would you react to this situation? Anybody has any thoughts? You can also share it in the chat box.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
Good evening. This is Parvati here. We could probably try to
Yes,
find out
Fatima.
like how and for how long she's been doing this, and if she's
Mhm.
copying this behavior or she's learning it from somewhere, maybe from her home circumstances or from someone at school.
Mhm. Okay. That's one way to look at it.
Fatima, there are some responses in the chat box.
Yes. Can you please
So
share it
the
with me?
first one, yeah, the first one is reward therapy might help.
Okay.
And the second one is I'll sit with her and try to help her in completing homework.
Okay. So we have a lot of understanding parents in the crowd, I see.
If I may add one
Is
response,
yes.
I think I would first not or somewhere try to agree if the child is saying that this is boring, or at least have
Mm-hmm.
try to understand from their perspective, at least by me saying that it can be boring, like at least admitting it
Hmm.
that doing
Hmm.
homework can be boring, or doing homework, I mean, there can be times when it can be you don't feel like doing it. So then the
Hmm.
child, I think, will feel that my mom is somewhere understanding me, and then maybe they
Hmm.
can open up and tell. I can take the conversation further to understand what's the issue. Because if I directly ask a 9-year-old that what is the problem, I don't think so I'll get an answer. That's what
Yeah,
I feel. Thank you.
Yeah.
that's true. Thank you
Uh,
so much for sharing your response. Yes.
yeah. And another thing we can do is if you don't complete your homework, what will the consequences you have to
Hmm.
face? That if we explain, and if you prefer that, yeah, we will make her to understand what is the consequence of not doing homework,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
make means so she will take yeah, tomorrow I will get scolded by teacher in front of my friends. Instead of I will finish it, and like that we can make her to understand the situation.
Mm-hmm. That's quite a good way to look at it. Is there any more? Are there any more responses?
There is one more in the chat box,
Okay.
which says that try to help her make her day structured.
Oh yeah, that's definitely a good way to look at it. So I want us all to keep these responses in mind, and I will be getting back to it and trying to understand which type of parenting style would these responses fall under. And I would like to continue with understanding exactly what does science have to say about parenting, right? So there are, in times of conflict especially, there are certain areas of the brain which are very important for us to understand. And it's quite fascinating because this is like, the way we parent is kind of backed up by science. So the first area of the brain, which is quite interesting, is our limbic system, which is our brain's emotional center. So if your child is yelling in a conflict and refusing to do their homework, or having a meltdown in middle of a supermarket, you might be wondering that what is happening? Why are they doing this right now? And that's definitely the limbic system at work. It's our brain's emotional center, and it's super reactive, especially in children. And this center is quite important for us to understand because it creates a sense of flight and fight response, which is important for our survival. And there are certain areas of the brain, especially in the limbic system, that we have to consider, which is firstly your amygdala, which controls how you experience emotions, how you feel emotions. It also controls your fear response. And the second one is hypothalamus, which produces your hormones to help you sleep, manage mood, hunger, thirst. Another area of the brain which is also important in the limbic system is your hippocampus, which helps you form new memory. And what your limbic system does is that it's quite naive. It doesn't know a difference between perceived danger and real danger. So if, for example, a grown-up person is yelling or scolding like a very small child is not able to understand that it's not a tiger who is running behind me. It's just a parent who is scolding me for something that I've done. So what it does is it triggers the release of the hormones, cortisol and adrenaline. Now, these two are very important in our stress response. So they basically prepare the body to fight or flight. So you must have seen that when your child is overly emotional, they might either go to the room, shut the door out loud and be like, I don't want to deal with this right now, or they might cry out loud, they might throw a tantrum, they might not know what to do, or they might yell back at you, right? And this same system is also in ourselves as adults, in parents, and because we are human too, right? So this is what ends up happening is when we are trying to rationalize with our child, we kind of lose our emotional center as well, and we also react with frustration, we also answer back. And what ends up happening is we are not using our rational brain to talk at that moment. And that brings me to the next one, which is the frontal cortex. Now, this is our thinking brain, and this is the part of the brain which helps us plan, problem solve, make decisions, and also regulating in emotions. So, what this area of the brain gives is it secretes hormones such as oxytocin, serotonin, dopamine, and they are very important in the feeling good emotions. They are called the feel good emotions, and they are also called the bonding emotions. Bonding hormones. So these, chemicals that are released are very important in the way we connect with our child, in which we bond with our child. And here's the catch, that the frontal cortex is not fully developed till around the age of 25 years. So when we are in a heat of a conflict and when we are trying to rationalize with a child, often what ends up happening is their frontal cortex is not developed fully. So they are not able to rationalize, they are not able to understand where you're coming from. And no matter how many times you might say that, screen time is not good for you, chocolates are not good for you, they would not understand, because the limbic system is much more active than their frontal cortex, right? So it's like just expecting a child to calm down and not think rationally is like asking, is like you trying to stream a video without connecting to the internet. That's just not going to happen. So it's always important that we learn co-regulation with the child. So you're kind of giving your sense of calm to them by sitting with them and helping them activate their rational brain more. Another concept that's quite important for us to understand is mirror neurons. So it's the way that, children reflect us. So you must have seen some children look exactly like their parents. They would behave exactly like their parents. They would laugh, they would smile exactly like their parents. And that's the beauty of mirror neurons. They are special brain cells that help us mirror the behavior of others. And they activate when we perform an action and we observe someone performing an action. And children's brain are especially sensitive to them. And so when we, in the heat of the moment, when we stay calm, when we regulate ourselves, a child is also able to copy that and learn that coping skill. Mirror neurons are also important in way that the children interact with others in the environment, and especially in understanding how to interact with the other gender. So the way your father reacts to your mother, the way your mother reacts to your father is definitely a skill that children learn through watching that interaction like a mirror. So it's quite important that you're very cautious in your interaction with others, because children will definitely reflect that through modeling. Now, the next part of the brain, which is interesting, is the next concept which is interesting is the concept of neuroplasticity. which tells us that the brain is always changing. It's like a malleable plastic which helps, which keeps learning, keeps rewiring itself to accommodate new information. And neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections throughout life. So every interaction, every moment of calm, every repair after conflict literally shapes your brain structure over time. So it's important that we are able to establish positive interaction with our children so that they can develop emotional regulation skills, which are rooted in brain plasticity. And you'll also notice that, victims of abuse, victims of post-traumatic stress disorders, the way their emotional coping, the cognitions are literally altered because of that traumatic experience. But the good part is that through therapy, through healing, through having positive interaction, you're able to alter that brain chemistry and rewire yourself to have good experiences, positive experiences. Now, the last concept that I want to discuss is the concept of amygdala hijack, which is why children and kids lose it. So amygdala, as we discussed, is a part of the limbic brain which controls your fear responses, controls your ability to express and understand emotion. So you must have often noticed that with younger kids, especially, if something does not go their way, they will go from 0 to 100 with terms of their emotional outburst. So what happens is that even if it's like a small rejection, a small no that they hear, their body perceives it as a big threat, and it hijacks the rational brain. So your frontal cortex stops working and your limbic system is taken control. So they are no longer thinking, they are just reacting. And that same thing happens to us. That's why, we might often wonder that what were you thinking when you are talking to a child? That why did you do that? What were you thinking? And most often than not, they're not able to think at that moment because their rational brain has quietened down and their amygdala has taken control. So in these moments, it's quite important that we form a connection with the child before we correct them about something. And just like a calm voice, a hug, or like a gentle way that you can approach things in the heat of the moment it will really help deactivate the amygdala, and then you can then appeal to the rational side, right? So these are the areas of the brain which are really crucial in the way we parent the children. Now, let us understand what does psychology have to say about parenting. Yeah. So the first theory that I would like to discuss is the attachment theory, which was given by John Bowlby, and it talks about how early childhood bonds with our caregivers significantly impacts the social and emotional development, forming foundation for future relationships. So Bowlby believed that children are biologically programmed to form attachment, which will help them form like a secure base. So when children are born in this world, the primary caregiver could be the parent, either of the parent or the grandparent or whoever is around them and meeting their demands. So children use this attachment figure as a secure base, so then they can explore the environment, they can explore the world, knowing that they have this secure base that they can come to. So it's very important that when a child is born, you are consistently responsive to them and you're meeting the child's demands so that they can develop this sense of security and trust. And this security and trust is very crucial in them being able to, get independent and able to form relationships with others. So the key here is to form a safe base for your child by forming attachment, by being responsive to their needs and understanding exactly what is it that I can support my child with. Now, the second theory that is important in understanding is Albert Bandura's social learning theory, which tells us about how children learn behaviors by observing and imitating others. So if you sometimes your child might say something or do something and you might wonder that, he's doing it exactly like me. This is exactly what I would do or I would react. And that's the social learning theory in action. So children are constantly watching and they are constantly noting down how we talk to others, how we react in distress, how we resolve conflict, how we treat our elders, how we treat everybody around us. And why are they doing this is because they don't have a prerequisite. They are not, again, born with a manual, as I said. They're trying to make sense of the world. And the way they do that is watching their primary caregiver interact with others so that they can understand that, okay, this is how the world works and this is what I have to do with it. So often at times when we get agitated in terms of conflict, when we get out of control, children will also observe that. And that's the way they would react when they are faced with conflict. So it's, and the next bit is that children are more likely to adopt behaviors that the parents see that they are rewarded for, and those associated with positive outcomes. So they are more likely to do things like helping people if you appreciate them for it, if you praise them for it, because it's associated with a positive reward. So together, what these two theories do is, firstly, they teach us how emotional connect is important for the child to form a secure base and to form relationships with others in the environment, and how they make sense of the world and how they do certain things and learn certain things through observation. So how we love, how we react, how we regulate ourselves, and how we treat others becomes kind of like a blueprint of the what will the child carry forward. Now, another theory and the crux of this webinar is understanding Dan Baumgart's attachment theory. So, Baumgart explained attachment using two main dimensions, which is responsiveness and demandingness. What responsiveness means is how warm and how supportive the parent is, and what demandingness means, how much control or structure do they provide. So when we look at the first type of parenting, which is authoritarian parenting, you will see that there is high demand but low responsiveness. There's a lot of control, a lot of rules, very strict set of punishments, and there's no room for collaboration, right? It's very parent driven. It's very that you have to do this because I said so. You have to get this number of marks. You have to hang out with these people. You have to wear certain clothes because I said so. And the child really doesn't have a say in what they want to do. And what this type of parenting does is it develops a follower mentality where children are having a lot of trouble in deciding for themselves. So if you as a parent are dictating what the child does every set of the day, every time of the day, every decision of theirs, what you end up doing is you take that their ability to form choices and their own, whatever they want to do, basically. And so these parents are high on control, but they are low on warmth, and they expect obedience without any sort of an explanation. And often these children who are parented using these style, they often have low self-esteem, and they will keep seeking confirmation of their worth from other authority figures. So these children are much more likely to seek validation from their friends, from their peers, from their teachers, professors. And this can have a very damaging consequence when they go into adulthood, because they are not able to form decisions on their own. They're not able to feel good about themselves because they constantly keep seeking validation of others. And very importantly, these kids are also susceptible to being victims of abuse, being victims of substance use, because again, they're trying to seek validation, and in doing so, they often end up in situations which are not fair. Now, the second type of parenting that I would like to discuss is authoritative, which sounds quite familiar to authoritarian, I'm aware. But the one way you can remember this style is, if it's positive, it's authoritative. And this is considered the most balanced style. So these parents are high on control, but they are also high on responsiveness. So they are both warm and they are firm. And they set like clear rules and expectations that, you can talk to me, but there are certain rules which are also in place. So it's a very parent and child driven approach. So instead of, as you can see on the slide, it's like a let's discuss approach. So there will be rules, but they will be collaboratively made, that if you don't do this, then what are the consequences that we can think of together. So here the child also has a say, and this leads to like having a sense of structure, but also having the support. And children who are raised through this style are very confident, they are very emotionally intelligent, and they're very competent in life, because they know that no matter what happens, I'm able to decide for myself, but I'm also able to rely on my parents for support. And they gain that sense of self assurance, and they are able to handle responsibility in life. And they're also able to figure out how to overcome different difficulties. And they're able to be confident in their judgment. Now, the next type of parenting that I want to discuss is permissive parenting, which is low on demand and high on responsiveness, in which it's very child driven, that whatever the child wants, you are just saying yes. And parents think that, they are being very loving, they are being very supportive. So they don't want to set strict rules. They won't enforce rules children can basically do whatever they want. And what ends up happening is these parents don't set boundaries. And when these children go out in the real world where there are rules, there are structures, there are boundaries, they often struggle with emotional regulation. They often struggle with impulsivity. They often struggle with having a sense of authority. And these children, when their demands are not met, they will have like tantrums, they will fight, and they will show like a poor emotional control. And they will be, overly rebellious or overly defiant if things don't go their way. And they will also give up when they can't face a challenge, when they can't hear a no. And they're not very resilient that way. So another consequences of this is also engaging in antisocial behavior, engaging in drug and alcohol abuse. So again, not very great results with this type of a parenting. Now, the last and the most damaging style becomes the neglectful parenting, when there is low demand and low responsiveness, where the parent is uninvolved and they don't really care what's happening in their child's life, and very little support and nurturance is given. So they may be emotionally absent, they may be preoccupied, they may be indifferent to the child needs. And children often develop trust issues, they develop emotional problems, and they develop poor social skills. So they will tend to struggle to form relationships with others. They will have very hostile behavior sometimes, and they might tend to isolate themselves from others because they don't know what it's like to have a secure base, and they don't know what it's like to be supportive. So these are the major authoritative styles, attachment styles that we have discussed. And the best and the most balanced one is the authoritative, which is again the positive style. And another issue that comes up in parenting often is when you have children of different age groups. Now, I have a case here to elucidate what I mean by that. So, 5-year-old Aditi often compares herself to her older sister Arya, who is 15. She admires her sisters, but feels that her parents are partial towards her. She feels they give her importance and finds that the rules for both of them are not the same. So this often leads to argument within the household, where parents feel stuck between meeting the demands of parenting while also being impartial. So a lot of the times children might ask you, why is my older sister getting so much liberty? And then the older sibling might ask you that why does she get away with everything, even if she's younger? So why is it that there is a need for, different type of parenting with different age groups? And why is it that, we have to not be equal all the time, but we have to be fair in the way we work with our children? So there are certain demands that come with particular ages, right? So you would not act the same way to a 15-year-old the way you would to a 5-year-old. So differences here. Firstly, when a child is born, when they are an infant from 0 to 2 years, the main focus is on building like a sense of trust with the child. New mothers are often bonding with the child both physically and emotionally. And your child is also exploring the world using sensory stimulation by using their eyes, their ears, their hands. So in this age group, it's very important that you're there meeting their demands. You're there to clean their diapers. You're there to feed them. You're there to, console them when they might be crying. And this is the way that they would want to understand that, okay, my parent is there and they are going to meet my demands. And this is what would make them feel safe. So it's very important that in this age group that we constantly are able to be there and meet their demands. We are able to support them because this early security, as I discussed earlier, would build their emotional safety, would lead to like less stress in their brains and also build trust to be able to go outside in the world and explore. Now the second age group that we see is toddlerhood, which is 2 to 4 years old, but the major focus is on developing autonomy, developing language and expression, and also developing your motor skills. So you must have noticed that your 4-year-old might come to the kitchen and be like, Mama, Papa, I want to cut this vegetable. And you as a parent are like, no, there's no way, you're not entering this kitchen, you're way too young, or you're not ready for it. And what we end up doing is dismissing them that, you're not grown up yet, let it be. And what we could do instead as parent is that, encourage these little initiatives that they take. If they want to choose what they want to dress, if they want to choose what they want to eat, allowing them that liberty, because this would help them understand that, okay, I'm capable of making my own choices and I'm able to be independent in whatever capacity in that instance is. This is also important in noticing the way you interact with your child here, because they are developing their language functions. So the words you use, they will pick up on it very immediately, and your mirror neurons are also very active in this phase. So the way you use the language to communicate, whether you're respectful or disrespectful, they are all watching this and they are making a note, and that's probably how they'll develop it, right? This phase of their life is also when their limbic system is most active. So what ends up happening is when they were an infant, you would be meeting all the demands. You would be changing the diaper, as I said. You would be giving them food when they need it. You would be giving them the attention when they need it. But as they are growing up, that sense of responsiveness would reduce in intensity, and that's what ends up happening is when the children realize that the world does not revolve around me, that there are other things that my parents have to do. And that's where they start throwing tantrums. That's where they start testing your boundaries. And it's very important that you set clear, consistent boundaries for the child to follow, because this is where they will keep pushing you, they'll keep testing you. And it's they're trying to see how far can I go, what are the things I can do. They're very smart that way. So it's very important that you're able to establish that, okay, certain behaviors are okay, certain behaviors are not okay, so that they are able to understand that if I have to go ahead in there, I have to follow certain rules, and they won't feel very disturbed when they are in the real world, right? Now, the next stage that we see is the period of early childhood, which is 5 to 8 years old. Here, the focus is on socialization. Here, they are also developing early morality, and they are developing rule following. So here they'll start to understand that, okay, there are certain rules that I have to follow. And it's best that during this age that you are able to set a routine for them, that you have to go to school, you have to come back, you have to do this, you have to do this, because this is the stage where they are most likely to, get attuned to it quickly. And what they are doing in this phase is they are stepping out of their houses, they are forming social bonds with others. So in this phase, they are more likely to not as much care about your opinion as they would about their peers. And here it's important that, you know, you're being fair to them, you're modeling empathy. If they want to have a certain haircut to fit in that group with their friends, it's okay, like allowing them that liberty, but also teaching them that there are certain consequences of your action, because this is the stage where it's important for them to understand that sense of responsibility and that sense of accountability. So encouraging routines, encouraging peer relationships, and also helping them problem solve, giving them like small problems that they can take charge of and solve themselves, but also being there to provide support so that they can use that safety to explore the world, to be able to go through certain difficulties while also being understanding that they are competent enough to do that. Now, the late adulthood stage is the 9 to 12-year-old. Now, this is also crucial biologically, because this is where you might be starting to go through puberty. And there are also a lot of emotional things that are happening with you, a lot of bodily changes that are happening with you. And the focus of this age is on your identity, on developing competence, and there would be a lot of peer comparisons which might be happening. So as a parent, you have to encourage again the effort and not exactly the marks or what they bring to the table, and also giving them certain small tasks so that they're able to feel responsible and they are confident in them, and they are also able to cope up with higher grade pressures which will soon start coming in. And in this phase, when you set certain boundaries but are also able to communicate with them, that will give them an understanding that, no matter what happens, I have my parents there to support me. And also, I'm able to cope up with the structure that comes with schooling, for example. Now, in the late adolescent years, which is 13 to 18, the focus is on gaining that independence. You will see a lot of moody teenagers in this phase where they are trying to figure out their sense of identity, and the world is telling them that, you should be a certain way. You're telling them something else. Their peers are telling them something else, and there's a lot of confusion, a lot of chaos that's happening in this phase. So here the parenting demands then shift from control to guidance. That, it's okay that you don't have to fit into the certain group to be something, rather than just telling them that, you can't do this, you can't do that. Rather than that, shifting to more of a guiding role where you're able to guide them through whatever they might be facing, and again having that open channel of communication. And this is quite important, that we respect their privacy while staying emotionally available, not constantly bugging them that, what happened, tell me, who is that person, what are you doing in school, and what's happening with you. And this is a phase they might be exploring their sexuality, their relationships, they might be exploring also the relationship with substances. So it's very important that we are able to openly talk about what are the values that you hold as a person, what are the choices that you can take, what are the risks that you can take. And if you see that it's a lot of parents shy away from the taboo topics of like drugs or talking about sexual intimacy. And this is where we lose that connect with our children. If we create a space where we are able to talk openly about it, it's much more likely that we normalize the situation rather than creating like a taboo over it, creating a stereotype over it. And this will, help it make it seem like normal, and they are able to trust you more. They are able to communicate that, hey, mama, this is what is happening with me, or this is where I need help. And teaching them critical thinking skills and also accountability, that the choices that you make in life will stick to you, and it's important that you're able to cope up with it. Now, how do we explain to a 5-year-old or 15-year-old that, why is it that both of I'm acting differently to you and to the elder one or the younger one? So one way is that we can explain that, when for example, if you're explaining to the older one that when you were a child, you also had those liberties. And now, since you have grown up, you will have certain responsibilities, and I want to be able to trust you with them. And to the younger child, you might explain that, when you will grow up, when you will have those sense of responsibilities, you will also have the same rules and regulations. And another thing that happens often is when there is gender differences between the children. So here the key is to not label on their behaviors, like not saying that, you're so emotional, you're so girly, and or like you're so strong and you're so boyish, and that's great. When you are encouraging certain labels, that's again we are creating a disparity, again we are creating a competition, which will just lead to more conflict. So addressing these concerns and appreciating the effort is the key here. And another topic that is of concern is how do we manage sibling rivalry, right? I think all the parents who have two children would have at some point have this concern where they're like two children just fighting all the time and they're not able to make sense out of it. So some ways that you can stop that from happening is firstly by paying attention to what your kids are doing so that you can intervene before a situation begins to escalate. So firstly, by modeling your own calm and being attentive to what their needs are. When you start losing your sense of objectivity and when you start losing your, as they say, cool, the children are going to be much more confused and much more frustrated. So first, you have to start by modeling a calm within yourself and being attentive to understanding that, okay, what happened, what went wrong, and giving equal attention to both the kids or how much ever it is. So second point is that treating kids fairly and not equally. That fairness is essential, but it doesn't necessarily mean equal, right? So if you have one child who likes to go out, who likes to engage in sports, meet people, and you have one child who likes to stay at home and read a book, and when you're trying to punish both of them and you tell them both that both of you are grounded, what will end up happening is the one who likes to stay at home would not really consider it a punishment, and the one who likes to go outside, he really might be more affected by it. So punishment and reward should be tailored to your child's individual needs is the key point. And you have to understand that both or how many ever siblings you might have, they might have a different temperament, and what exactly works for each children is something that you as a parent will have to explore. And also, rarely you will witness events that are leading to a fight where blame game is not involved. So always remember it takes two to tango. So focus on each child's role in that situation. And it's a good way that you can resolve it is sit everybody down together, talk about what happened, talk about how the feelings were hurt, and how they can better manage their angers or their emotions, right? So the key is to help them cooperate over compete. So saying things like, you're always like this, you're always emotional, you're always acting out, and why can't you be more like your brother or your sister? This just creates a sense of competition, and we often tend to tell the elder one, for example, that you should just let it go now. Whatever the younger one is doing, you're much more mature, you should just let it go. And when you say things like this, what you're telling your child is that in terms of conflict, you should be the mature one and you should let it go. And this might have adverse effect when they go out in the world and when they are being treated unfairly. Instead of raising their voice, they might just want to let it go and they might just want to be cool with it. So that's not fair either, right? For either of the children. So it's very important that we teach the skill of cooperation rather than having that sense of competition. Also dedicating individual time and individual spaces for each of the children so they're able to develop their own unique identities and they're able to celebrate their own unique identities so that they don't feel that they are being rewarded for being a certain way. They can be their own individual self and still be okay with that. Then teaching them communication and problem solving techniques. That's something that you have to model as a parent. So the way you interact with your partner, the way you communicate, the way you both as a team problem solve is something that the children will pick up. And that's where we have to do a little work and be a little mindful in how we, get over something, and how we as a family, as a unit, can get over something. So incorporating fun family time is definitely something that is quite important, where we're able to have like fun movie time, fun picnics, where you're able to connect as a unit. So it's not that all of the individual members of the family are, having their own things going on in their life, but able to connect with each other so that you are able to cooperate better. Now, let's revisit the case of Priya, which we discussed earlier. And all of you had very great points about how you can like sit and understand maybe what's going on with her, how you can empathize with your child. And I think that all of your points were very positive in that way. And that's definitely something that we as parents can use as a skill. So in terms of conflict, what's something that you can do to connect with your child? So first, definitely connect before you correct. So build that emotional safety before addressing the behavior so that your child won't feel defensive, that they are able to pause and breathe and able to meet you emotionally. Is everybody able to see my screen? Okay, yeah, it just so pause, breathe, take your time to first connect with your child. Again, as I mentioned, stop their amygdala from going out of proportion, and like help them regulate themselves first before you are able to address that as there's the concern. And they're much more likely to listen if you are able to calm them down before, you know, uh, addressing that. So one way you can do this is by, addressing that, I see that you're upset, and let's take a breather first, and then we'll get to it. The second way that you can connect with your child in terms of conflict is by attending to their affect, attending to their arousal. What this means is matching their face expression, matching their tone and energy. So if, for example, your child might be like, I'm getting late and I can't find my shirt, you also match their energy that, oh my God, yes, let me help you find it. I can see that this is bothering you. Let me help you find it so that we can get over this together. So what this does is again activates your mirror neuron, where your child feels more connected that, my mom or dad are really able to get this, that they are able to connect with me and they are able to understand what's happening with me. And this is also crucial in terms of conflict when you're in heat of the moment, when everybody is yelling at each other. If you're just able to calm down, take a breather, and then interact, your child will also do the same by copying that. Again, their mirror neurons are firing. They're able to calm themselves down and be like, okay, now we can talk. Now, third way that we can connect with our child is listening deeply, clarifying and questioning, and keep wondering about what's happening. Why is this that's bothering you? So being curious about, okay, maybe for you it might not be such a big concern, but for a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old, it might be the end of the world. So keep questioning, keep wondering what's up, what is happening, what happened that you reacted this way. I want to understand. So this will help them, critically think about exactly what went wrong and what happened. And then they will develop that skill so that in future, when they act out emotionally or they are in a situations where they feel quite confused, they are able to wonder, they are able to question themselves, right? And lastly, mirror and not react, right? So make eye contact with them, get to their physical level if you can. If it's a small child, get to their eye level, talk to them, mirror their emotion. So this will help you both co-regulate. And that's the skill that you want to be able to teach your child. And it's important that we understand that regulation is contagious, but so is dysregulation. So if you are being hyperactive, you are being very frustrated, your child is going to learn the same thing, right? Now, here are some toolkits that I want to leave you all with. That one thing that you can do is lead by example. Children learn better from actions than advice. What I mean by that is, while growing up, my parents always told me to brush my teeth before going to bed. And I never ended up developing that habit because I never saw my own parents do it. So one way that you can motivate children to, have a better sense of routine is leading by example, by doing it yourself. So then again, as we learned in the social learning theory, they are able to observe you and learn from you. Secondly, a mistake that parents often do is they are not consistent with the rules and rules. So they're not consistent with the boundaries maintained. So this often ends up children acting out and keep pushing your boundaries because they would be like, you broke that boundary and you broke that rule for me last time. Why aren't you doing the same this time? So it's important that we are consistent with what we expect from our children and discussing and engaging in that conversation on what should we do if you're not listening, what should be the consequences and rewards would be. Letting them have a say that, if I'm waking up and getting ready on school on time for every day for a week, then at the end of the week, I get something to eat or I get something to do fun. Letting them have a say in what their rewards and consequences are going to be, so they are a bit more prepared to deal with them. And giving positive motivation and constructive criticism in a way by encouraging their efforts, saying that I really appreciate the way you worked on this subject, and that's why you got the result that you got. So appreciating the effort and not the end bit. That not just saying that you got all straight A's and that's so good and you're so smart and you're never like you never cry and you never do this, but appreciating the effort that it took a lot of strength for you to communicate. I'm really glad you did that. I'm really glad you put in the effort to study. So that's one way that you can connect with your child better. Again, the same point that when you establish and you adhere and maintain the boundaries yourself as a parent, your child is able to also know that certain rules and regulations are there and I have to maintain it. Also, importantly, what we often miss out on doing is having these connection to some special time with our children and understanding their needs, understanding like if they need a hug, and having these special moments with our child will always help you connect with your child better. Now, what is something that you can do if your child is not obedient, not compliant, and they're constantly pushing your boundaries? So something that you can do definitely is use positive punishment. So the goal of positive punishment is add something that will result in an unpleasant consequence. And the goal is to decrease the likelihood that the unwanted behavior will happen in the future. So the reason it's called positive is because it's not very punitive, it's not very controlling. It has a natural progression in a way that the child can understand and see. And always remember that when you're doing these consequences, when you're giving these punishments, you are being respectful, because the way you are respectful to the child is the way they will learn to be respectful in future with others in their relationship. So if you're not respectful to your children, they will learn to take abuse, they will learn to take not good things from others, and that's not what we want to encourage. So some positive punishment examples are firstly logical consequence. So if a child intentionally breaks a household item, they must help you clean. Loss of privilege, which is very common one, that if you're not doing something, then I'm going to take away your screen time or your reading time. Social repair task, which is one of my most favorite positive feelings. They write a note of apology or do something nice to repair the bond. So they are taking that initiative to repair that bond. And most common one that we all must have seen is giving them extra chores or extra tasks. So for example, a child who messes up their siblings' project will have to now help them build it, but also help them set dinner table. So all of these positive punishments are not just there to punish your child, but they have like an agenda to it. They have a reason to it, right? So they have a logical sequence to it so that your child is able to understand that because I did A thing, I'm getting B thing. It also instills a sense of responsibility in your child and accountability in your child that if I do certain things, there will be consequences, and it's not overly critical where they won't get uh, overly hurt or dismissed, and it's not just out of any reason. It's not punitive. It's reasonable. Is some of these techniques are. Now, finally, I would like to discuss just like a general parenting mantra that we all can follow. Again, as I discussed, connection before correction to activate our mirror neurons and to de-escalate the situation before it going forward. Saying yes to the feeling, but no to the behavior. What this means is your child might have, they might show tantrums, they might throw things around out of anger, they might do certain things which just to show that they are angry or trying to get attention. So in this time, we have to validate the feeling that hey, I understand you're feeling frustrated. I understand that you're going through a tough time, but this is not acceptable for you to hurt things or hurt people around you by saying things or doing things. So acknowledging and validating the feeling, but not being accepting of the behaviors necessarily. And something that we as parents often miss is that we are always focusing on the negatives, that my child is like this, he doesn't wake up in the morning, doesn't finish his homework, doesn't do this, doesn't do that. But we rarely compliment them. We rarely catch them being good. What this means is that if your child, says a nice thing, that you're like, oh my God, that's such a nice thing to say, or they're able to cope and do things which are like good, right? They're able to get them in the morning, get themselves ready and go to school. They're able to form good friendships. We have to catch them doing that so that they remember that, yes, I am competent. I am able to manage myself and my relationships. I can also do this because the way we interact with our children is something that the child will remember. For them, it's like our approval as parents becomes quite important. So when we catch them being good, we are instilling the positive elements that they bring, and we're instilling the values, good values in them. And thirdly, be curious, not furious. Again, wonder, ask questions, ask a lot of questions, because it might not make sense to you at the moment, but they might have their own rationale to it. So it's important that you're not dismissing that you're addressing these. And boundaries can be set lovingly. There's no need to be overly exertive, because as we saw with authoritarian parents, if we have set very strict and being very controlling, it can often lead to negative consequences on our children. So it's very important that we are able to set boundaries while being loving, while also providing support. And lastly, repair matters more than being perfect. So the goal is to not being perfect, because I believe that, if we are perfect, we are just stopping, we are not growing beyond that point. So we don't want to reach that point of perfection. I think human beings always keep evolving. So you as a parent also have to keep evolving to your child. So no matter what might have happened in the past, it's very important that you repair that relationship, you repair that bond that you have with your child. Okay. So thank you so much for all of your time. I'm definitely open to any questions that you might have.
Thank you so much, Riddhi ma'am, for such a wonderful session. It was indeed a very insightful session. And audience, we are open for questions. So if you all have any questions, please, if you can put it in the chat box, and we'll take questions one after another. Riddhi ma'am, there was one question from one of the audience that wanted one example for constructive criticism.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, when, for example, they might act out or they might do something ordinary. So after you have calmed down, after you have reached that point, you are able to constructively give them the criticism that I understand why you did what you did, but maybe you could have tried this instead of the way you reacted. And another example of constructive criticism is if they end up not scoring well in an exam, you have to again appreciate that effort, that, I appreciate that you put in so much effort and this technique has worked out for you. Maybe this has not worked for you. So the again emphasis would be on efforts, emphasis would be on what you have achieved till now and what is the area of growth. So that's one template that you can carry for constructive criticism.
Thank you, ma'am, for answering that. Audience, are there any more questions? We are open for questions. So if you have any queries, you can just put it in the chat box. Riddhi ma'am, there is a question. So the question is, what a validating environment in a house with 3-year-old?
Yes. So as I discussed in the presentation, in the age of 3 years, your child would most likely to be experimenting with things, with doing like going around your house and looking at this and asking you a lot of questions, because in this age group they are trying to make sense of the world. So they'll be very curious. They'll have many questions, and a lot of the time parents can be quite dismissive. So a validating environment here would be to address all the curiosity that the child might have, providing them with any resources, and also giving them choices, giving them autonomy so that they can choose and they can be validated that, I can make decisions for me. I can also do things, and I'm also competent. So a way to validate your child is praising them on small things. Like, if they are able to pour like water inside a cup without spilling, that's something that you can praise, and you're like, oh my god, that's so good. Like how quickly you learned that, right? So praising, being supportive, giving them autonomy and addressing their curiosities is something that you can help them with.
Thank you, ma'am, for answering that. Are there any more questions? As I see, there are no further questions. So shall we conclude the session here, ma'am? Audience, okay, so as I see no more questions coming in, I would like to conclude this session by again big thank you to Riddhi ma'am for such a wonderful and informative session. And I'm sure in today's webinar, a lot of parents have fill their hands with a lot of information, and probably they are going to now use that with their children, and hope that works well for both the parties. And thank you once again, Riddhi ma'am, for such a wonderful session. And audience, before we break in for this webinar, we close the session, I would just like to give you the topics for the next webinar, which will be presented by none other than Dr. Akila Sadashivan. And I'm sure the minute you hear about this, you all would be eagerly waiting to know the topics. So I am actually introducing to you the two topics, and I would like to get to know the poll on which of the topics that you all would prefer. So my first and second topic that I'll read out, you all can just put in your poll by numbering it 1 or 2. So the first topic that would be left behind, the unseen burden of late diagnosis in learning disorders. That is topic number 1. And the topic number 2 is impact of social media on adolescents' identity formation and mental health. So these are your two topics. So if you could just put in the chat box by either mentioning it number 1 or 2, which the two of it y'all would prefer. Oh, it's a 50-50, I see.
More takers,
But
2, I think. It looks like there are more.
2, yeah,
Someone's said 22.
22.
Yeah,
So
so
2
2.
to go the high.
Yes, right.
Yes. All
Okay.
right. So here I announce you the topic for the next webinar, which would be held in August, is impact of social media on adolescents' identity formation and mental health. And another slight poll I would require you in terms of dates. So since next month we enter into a festivity month, as we have Ganesh Chaturthi festival heading in the same week where our presentation falls. So we usually do the presentation in the last week of every month. So this next month date of the last week would be 29th August. So since we have that entire week as Ganesh Chaturthi festival, like especially Tuesday and Wednesday are the major two festivals. So would you all be comfortable attending the webinar on either 29th of August, or if we can do it on 22nd of August? That is 1 week before the festival. If you all could give a heads up on the date as well, either August 22nd or August 29th.
Alva, most of them have said any date is okay. Only one person has chosen 20.
Yes.
So, so 29th is the week after Ganesh Chaturthi, and 22nd is the week before, right? So, since specifically only one person has asked for 22nd and others are flexible, should we go ahead and fix it for 22nd so that we finish it before the festivity begins? Yes, Akshata, you're asking for the 29th, is it? Okay, let's just wait for a few more responses. Okay, again, we're having a tie. One person says 22nd, one person says 29th. Most others say anything is okay. One more response for a tiebreaker. Twenty-ninth. So there are two people who are saying 29th. Okay, then let's fix it for 29th then, since we have more takers for 29th specifically. And most other people seem to be okay about any date. So we'll fix it for 29th, which is the last Friday of the month. So there will be no change in the schedule. Yes? Okay. All right. Thank you.
Ma'am,
Yes, sir.
was one a question.
Yeah. Arva, your voice is breaking, but there's one more question in the chat box. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes. Now we can hear you.
Yes, yes. So, ma'am, it is mentioned like as a parent, if I realize I'm wrong and willing to change or correct, will that work? How do I do it?
Yes, Uma ma'am. Definitely that will work. As I discussed, that your brain is like plastic, and it will keep learning and it will keep rewiring. So a good beginning point would be to address that and take responsibility that maybe the way you may have reacted as parent and you realize that you're wrong. Maybe the way that it happened in the past was not ideal, but going forward you would want to change and you would want to do certain things differently. So having that dialogue with your child is definitely a good starting point, and letting them know that no matter how things have ended up in the past, I'm still here and I'm willing to change and I'm willing to support you in the way that I can. Ma'am, is there something else you'd like to add?
No, I think you've covered the question very well. That being aware that you are contributing to the issue in some way and wanting to change, and admitting it to the child will go a long way in bringing about changes overall in the environment.
I hope that answers you, Mama.
Ma'am, is there a question?
Ma'am, your voice is stuck again, but Uma ma'am has responded saying thank you. So I think we have answered her question. All right, we'll wind up then, ma'am. Yes. Thank you everyone for joining. We'll see you next month.
Thank you.